Hey everyone, welcome to the Git command line series. So today what we'll talk about is installing Git on your machine. We will create an empty repository, and if you don't know what that means, we will explain that briefly. We also will add some files to our commit, and then we will actually commit them. So let's take a look at this installation process. If you come to the website, Git SCM, you can see that you can just follow the steps they have here. I am on Linux, so what I will do is I will just use sudo apt install Git. Now this is a Debian derivative of Linux that I'm using, which is why I have apt. If you are on things like Red Hat or Fedora, you might have to use RPM or a different program that I'm not as familiar with. I'm just going to close out of my terminal here because in dealing with what you're about to see is you will see me interacting with the terminal a lot because obviously this is command line git. On Windows, you actually will have a thing called git bash. So I don't have Windows here, but if you right click, one of the options you'll have is git bash here. And it's the equivalent of clicking open in terminal for me, where it automatically takes me into the correct directory or folder if you like to use that terminology. Anyway, once you are in the proper folder or directory, what we need to do is initialize our repository. We're going to create an empty one, and you type git init to do that. So, Visual Studio is starting to light up because it has Git things as well. If you're curious about learning how to use this through Visual Studio, in addition to doing it in the command line, I have a series on that as well. Anyway, though, the thing to take note of is that the .git directory has appeared here, and this is the framework that Git uses behind the scenes. At no time do you actually need to interact with any of the files or directories in this directory of .git. But that's what git init does, is it will create this directory for you. Anyway, let's look at what we have to work with here. So the only file I have in here is the agenda. And you might be wondering, well, how does this repository stuff work and what are commits and all of that? Well, when I was younger and I was writing code, often what I would do is I would take an entire copy of the folder I was working in and put it on my desktop of all places so I could easily find it, and then I would make changes. And if the changes worked, that was great. And if they didn't, I would just throw away my changes and I would bring back that snapshot that I had created of the entire folder on my desktop. And that's basically what Git will be doing behind the scenes. Is it won't be copying entire directories, it's smarter than that, but it will be creating snapshots. So we don't have any commits yet, so we don't have any snapshots per se. And what we're going to do is, well, we're going to follow the directions here. It says if there's nothing present, to use git add to start tracking them. So we're going to start adding files to our snapshot. And the only file we have here is our agenda, so let's do that. We'll do git add, and then you can either type in the name of the file, or if you want to add absolutely everything, let's say your program consists of more than one file, you can just do git add period, and that will add everything. Now if we check our git status again, we can see that there is a new file that is in the stage. So it is being staged so that we are able to make any last minute changes before we actually commit to our snapshot being saved on our repository. Well, this looks good to me. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a git commit, and then we are going to do a message with it. So I'm going to include -m, and I'm going to put a double quote and say adding my first file. All right, and if we hit enter on this, you can see now that it says one file change. There were 4 lines that were added, and that is true because that file didn't exist and there were no lines. So now there are 4 of them. And if we check our status again, we can see that there is nothing that has changed. We're all up to date. Now let's just let's say we made some mistakes and we saved this file and we had opened and closed and everything else. There's no undo button and you're thinking, oh no, what have I done? Well, that is where Git is a beautiful thing. So if we look at this and we check our status, it can say you can see there are changes that have been done. And we don't want those changes because they're garbage changes. You can see here it says git restore and then the name of the file. So let's try that out once. Git restore agenda. And it is back to what it was before. Now if we check our status, you can see there is nothing to commit because we are all up to date. Again, we are in sync with our current snapshot that, or I should say the last snapshot that we made. So this is the very introduction, the very basics of command line Git, but I hope you enjoyed this video and we do look forward to seeing you in the next video.